Ladies and gentlemen, the 42nd President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton, accompanied by the Honorable Jim Daley, Mayor of Little Rock.
Please be seated. On behalf of the Foundation, we welcome you to the site of the future Clinton Presidential Park in Little Rock's River Market District. Before beginning today's program, I want to say thank you to Stephanie Street and the Clinton Foundation staff. That's well deserved. To the people who helped me, Jordan Johnson, Paulette Craig, and the numerous volunteers who helped make today possible. I also want to express our personal and special thanks to City Director Dean Compuris, Assistant City Manager Bruce Moore, and the Little Rock City Board and staff. At the conclusion of today's program, and following the ceremonial digging with shovels, everyone is invited to go across the street for lunch, hosted by the Jennings Osborne family. Now, for those of you who have never experienced a Jennings meal, let me just say you won't believe it. And when you meet Jennings, who will be, by the way, in the serving line, you will be meeting a man whose name in Arkansas will be forever linked with the word kindness. Today's invocation will be given by Rabbi Eugene Levy, Temple B'nai Israel in Little Rock. It will be followed by the national anthem performed by a special friend of the Clinton Foundation, Lena Womack. Her presentation will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. In a salute to those who died on September 11th at the Pentagon, in Pennsylvania and in New York City, including 2 Arkansans, and in grateful appreciation of those who were part of that rescue efforts. The pledge will be led by Kim Turner, an engineer with the Little Rock Fire Department. It's now my pleasure to present to you a good man, a good citizen, and a strong and positive community voice, Rabbi Gene Levy.
We invoke your blessings upon us, O God, during these next few moments in our lives. We ask you to allow us to take some time off from the tragic and trying events of 9/11 and to focus for a few brief moments this morning on a recent era and just how that era affected us and how it is to be preserved in both time and memory. With each scoop of earth and with every aspect of the building process to follow, may we be reminded of a great man and his captivating vision. May we indeed recall the presidency of William Jefferson Clinton as he brilliantly and courageously led us through the 1990s with economic prosperity, with a love for pluralism and diversity, with a religious favor that exuded love, respect, and openness, with the respect and admiration of leaders and peoples throughout the world, and with a passion that all peoples should value and care one for the other. May those here today who are older come to this place to show those who are younger for generations to come, that there is indeed a place that can remind us of and give us hope and encouragement. May we remember the all too brief moments of this Camelot when a man named Bill Clinton dedicated his presidency to fighting prejudices and bigotry, to improving the lives of all citizens, to bringing people together from all over the world, and to making them feel good about themselves and their country. May this library and the grounds upon which it stands be a gathering place for scholars and workers, for clergy and professionals, for farmers and business and industrial people, for visitors and school children, all of whom can yet live the dream and come to this location to see and experience it as a place called hope. Amen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets reclaim the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Before introducing the mayor of Little Rock, let me welcome our out-of-town and out-of-state guests here this morning. We thank you all for being here. I want to personally introduce a good friend and a member of the Clinton Foundation Board who is working very hard on this project, and with the possible exception of Bill Clinton, he has more energy and determination than anybody I've ever met. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Terry McAuliffe. In addition to the City of Little Rock, we will have some great future partners on this project. One will be the National Archives, and we have with us the Assistant Archivist for Presidential Libraries, Mr. Rich Claypool. Rich? And also our very good friend, the Director of the Clinton Presidential Materials Project, Dr. David Alsobrook. David? As many of you know, in association with this project, the University of Arkansas will be establishing a master's degree program at the Clinton School of Public Service. Here this morning is the president of the University of Arkansas, Dr. Alan Sugg. Alan? And I want you to meet the person who is coordinating this important program, our good friend Pat Torvestad. Pat? And I can't let the morning go by, or the moment go by, without pausing to recognize the work and the inspiration of a gifted University of Arkansas educator, the late Diane Blair. Coming soon to the area with its headquarters and global village, along with many wonderful opportunities for great partnerships, is one of the world's finest humanitarian organizations, Heifer Project International. There's a contingent from Heifer Project here today, and I want everyone to know how excited we are to be Heifer Project's next door neighbor. The Clinton Presidential Library and Park has a lot to do with bridges. We're turning an old abandoned one in this future park into a pedestrian walkway across the Arkansas River. The Polshek Partnership's design itself honors the building of that bridge to the 21st century. The mayor of Little Rock is a bridge builder. He brings people together. He believes that a city's diversity is also its great strength. And along with his colleagues on the city board, past and present, he has been a strong supporter of this project. President Clinton, as you elevate the important policy issue of racial and religious reconciliation, there is no one who lives it, who practices it, and who promotes it any better than your good friend and our mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, the mayor of the great city of Little Rock, the Honorable Jim Daley.
Thank you, Skip. And before I make the introduction that I'm so proud to be able to make this morning, I want to take a moment of personal privilege and acknowledge that I think, save one person, the entire City Board of Directors of Little Rock is right down front. I see also my good friend Mayor Hayes, Judge Valines, and Dan Cootie, Mayor of Fayetteville, and others that are here. And I'm sure when you start naming people, you miss them. But I want to, in particular, acknowledge the fact that the City Board of Directors has in every way stayed unified, stayed resolute, and unwavering on this long journey that we are celebrating today with this groundbreaking. And I want you to give them a round of applause for what they have done. Well, I'm sure as you've already noticed and can see from this program that I had planned to introduce the former First Lady of America, the former First Lady of Arkansas, and now the distinguished United States Senator from New York, Hillary Rodham Clinton. But unfortunately, Senator Clinton, Senator Lincoln, Congressman Snyder, and others in Washington could not be with us today because of pressing congressional votes. Well, we certainly understand that. At the same time, we regret that the senator cannot be here with us today because she truly continues to play such a vital role in the planning and the development of this important project. Hillary, we miss you today. As Skip Rutherford has indicated, we have a lot of people who are here from out of town, from out of state, some from out of the country, and it is a great honor to have you in our city for this wonderful occasion. We welcome you as our guests to the first capital that President Clinton called home, and to the home of his presidential library. And for those of you who have not seen the full-page ad in today's Arkansas Democrat Gazette, sponsored by the Greater Little Rock Chamber of Commerce, the Little Rock Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Downtown Partnership, and 50 for the Future, you should read it. It says it all. Mr. President, I want to tell you, on election night in 1992, Mr. President, I hoped that today would happen. And this morning, on December the 5th, 2001, I thank you for making it happen. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my personal privilege to introduce to you and present to you the 42nd President of the United States, Bill Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, thank you for that introduction. Lena, thanks for singing. Kim, thank you for leading the Pledge of Allegiance, which means more to us now, perhaps than it did a few weeks ago. My old friend Rabbi Levy, with whom I used to discuss the Middle East when my views were of no consequence, but my interest was still as great. And to my great friend Dick Nixon, who married me and Hillary 26 years and 2 months ago this month. Thank you for being here. And Skip, thank you. I would like to begin by noting that the very first groundbreaking ceremony for a presidential library was hosted by our neighbor from Missouri, Harry Truman, in 1955 on his 71st birthday. At that ceremony, speaker after speaker commented on the astonishing sum that had to be raised for the library, $1,750,000. Now, I tried very hard to turn back inflation during my 8 years as president, but as you can see, I couldn't take it back that far. I look out at this audience and see people without whom I would not have been able to live my life, especially the last 28 years of it in public life, since I first started running for Congress in January of 1974. I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank those who wanted to be here but couldn't today. I just got off the phone with Hillary, who is voting in the Senate, as the mayor said, at a time when they all need to be there to cast all their votes. But she is heartsick to miss this event. And Chelsea tried to call me this morning. She is now, as most of you know, studying at Oxford, but she lives in the same courtyard I lived in 33 years ago, and she's doing very well. 2 other people asked me to remember them to you. Dale Bumpers and I had a great long lunch in Washington a couple of weeks ago. We told more stories in less time than I've done in a decade. And just a few days ago, our former Senator David Pryor produced a crowd of 7,000 people at Harvard at the Institute of Politics for me. And I told the people assembled there that I had spent a lifetime going to barbecues, fish fries, and coon suppers with David Pryor. I never thought I'd ever have to go to Harvard to see him. I want to thank the mayor, Dean Campuris, and the rest of the city board, Deputy Manager Bruce Moore. I want to thank the other officials here in Pulaski County, especially Judge Valines and Mayor Hayes, for their support. I thank the governor and the legislature for their support of this project. And Mr. Speaker, thank you for being here today. I can't say enough about Skip Rutherford and David Alsobrook, Stephanie Street, Linda Dixon, all the other people who work on my behalf here. Thank you, Dr. Sugg, Pat Torvestad, Joyce Roten, and all the people at the university. I thank the people at the Central Arkansas Library and the folks from the National Archives who have done so much to help this project get off the ground. I'd also like to thank the people who will build it. Jim Polchek, Ralph Applebaum, my longtime friend Bill Clark, and all of their teams. They've got all the work to do now. I want to thank Terry McAuliffe, Peter O'Keefe, and the others who have contributed or are working to raise the funds necessary to finish this project. We're going to try to build it in less time than it took to build the medieval cathedrals or the Egyptian pyramids. But if I can't rein in my team here, they may cost as much in present dollars. I want to thank all of you who were part of my various administrations. There are people here who worked for me from the time I was Attorney General to Governor to President. Matt McClarty and Bruce Lindsay and I flew down together yesterday and relived most of it. It gets better every time we tell it. By the time the building gets up, it'll be a great story. Presidential libraries give Americans access to their history and to the choices that shaped our nation. It was my great privilege to serve as president at the end of the Cold War, in the dawn of the global information age, a time of enormous change in the way Americans work and live and relate to each other and the rest of the world. For 8 years, I was blessed to have an amazingly talented, diverse, and dedicated team of people who worked hard to turn America around, take America forward, bring the American people together, and build our bridge to the new century. To bring people peace and prosperity, social justice, and social progress. To put America at the center of the global economy. And to use this unique and fleeting moment of our political, economic, and military preeminence to spread the benefit and to reduce the risks and burdens of the 21st century world. I was guided by a simple political philosophy. Everybody deserves a chance. Everybody has a responsible role to play. We all do better when we help each other. Opportunity, responsibility, community. With that philosophy, we were able to move beyond a lot of the old arguments that had prevented progress, to take America to new heights and to change our political life in ways that are still apparent today. What we did found followers all across the world in a movement that became known as the Third Way. Historians will judge how well we succeeded, but we already know we've come a long way since 1992, when the best-selling political book was titled America, What Went Wrong? And Time magazine actually seriously asked, is the United States in an irreversible decline as the world's premier power? This library will house the documents that tell the story of the last years of the 20th century and the dawn of a new millennium. Many of them will also, the documents, be available on the internet, which means when the classification period ends, and at this library, it will end. You will be able to read the memos that went back and forth, to see how, for example, we decided to get involved in Bosnia and Kosovo, the arguments we had about what we should and shouldn't do, how we put together the economic plan in 1993 or the Balanced Budget Act in 1996, how we passed welfare reform and failed to pass health care, what we did to try to implement the laws that the Congress passed, where we succeeded and where we didn't do so well. You'll also be able to see the notes that I wrote in the margins of all those memos, which the people who collected them said was by far the largest number of collection of notes in the history of presidential documents. And the people who work for me said that the only reason I don't want to seal my records is that nobody can read my notes anyway. While this library will expose the past through the documents and explain the policies, as you might imagine, we won't stop thinking about tomorrow. The mission of this library and the foundation, the mission of this library and foundation indeed will be largely devoted to the future. The spirit behind the whole project is not only to help people understand what was going on in America over the 8 years I served as president, but mostly to help them understand what kind of country we are becoming, what our opportunities and responsibilities at home and abroad are, and what kinds of choices we should make. The education programs will focus principally on encouraging people and preparing them for successful careers in public service. The foundation will continue the most important work of my presidency: racial and religious reconciliation, economic empowerment, effective democracy, and citizen service. During this new time of challenge in the world, I believe many of the lessons we learned over the last 8 years can help us move into the future. As we all support President Bush and our allies in winning the fight in Afghanistan against Mr. bin Laden, the Al-Qaeda, and the Taliban, as we continue to build our defenses here at home against domestic terrorism, we must also remember there's a reason we're the target, and we have to keep making America the greatest country on earth, stronger and better every day. We also have to remember that half the world is not part of all the good fortune that has come to us in the last several years. And we must do much more to spread the benefits and shrink the burdens of the 21st century. No terror campaign has ever succeeded, and this one won't either. But we are vulnerable here at home for the first time for a simple reason. We have built a world without walls. We have torn down barriers, collapsed distances, and spread information. We cannot claim the benefits of that world without recognizing the exposure that it brings us. And since we can't rebuild the walls, and most of us don't want to, we must go on to build our defenses, to fight our adversaries, but also to make a world where we have more partners and fewer terrorists. That means we have to do more than we have, and what we have done proves it works. To reduce global poverty and inequality of opportunity. Just remember this when you go to bed tonight. Half the people in the world are living on less than $2 today. 1 billion on less than $1. 1 billion will go to bed hungry. And 1.5 billion, 1/4 of all the people on earth, never get a clean glass of water. We can do something about that for not much money. We have to help the Secretary General fight AIDS and other infectious diseases before we have the biggest epidemic since the Black Plague wiped out 1/4 of Europe in the 14th century. We have to combat global warming, although I must say it's nice in particular. As it is today, it's still a big problem. We have to get the 100 million children in the world who never go to school into school. And those who are being indoctrinated instead of educated in madrasas should have a chance to get a real education. We can do it for next to no money. Now, we also have to support democracy and human rights. And we have to strengthen the forces of moderation and peace in the Middle East. This will all cost money, but it's a lot cheaper than going to war. It also will require private citizens to do things like the people at Heifer Project do. And I'm so proud we're going to be neighbors. This library and foundation will help me to make my contribution here in Arkansas, in New York, across America, and across the world, to give something back for the wonderful life and unique responsibility the American people gave me in 1992 and 1996. In the process, I especially hope to encourage a new generation of young Americans to be involved in public service. When I was the age of the young people in the audience today, Robert Kennedy told my generation, and I quote, "Each of us will ultimately be judged and will ultimately judge ourselves on the extent to which we personally contributed to the life of this nation and the world we are all trying to build." That's why I was especially proud of the AmeriCorps program we established in my first term. In just 7 years, over 250,000 young Americans have served across this country, including many in Arkansas, earning benefits for college, changing the lives of their fellow citizens forever. That's more than have served in the entire 40-year history of the Peace Corps. That's the kind of thing we need to do much more of. And that's why the School of Public Service, which will be housed in the Choctaw Station behind me, is so profoundly important to me. You know, I have always believed that politics and public life are noble endeavors. I never understood why so many people spent so much time trying to argue the opposite case. We should never forget that on September the 11th, the only people going up the stairs at the World Trade Center were firefighters and police officers, public servants. We should never forget that the young people fighting for our future in Afghanistan against terrorism are public servants. We should never forget that the people working to strengthen our defenses here at home, and the people you never knew who stopped countless terrorist attacks over the last several years, are public servants. The people who teach our children are public servants. The people who reach out a helping hand in any way in this community are public servants. There are a lot of people here who served in my administration as president. If you ask them how they're getting along today, 9 out of 10 of them would tell you something like this: "Well, I'm glad to have my life back, and I'm making a lot more money, but I sure miss the work." The public service. Martin Luther King once said, "Everybody can be great because everybody can serve." The currents of American history make no promises and have no guarantees. They depend upon citizen servants, on the values and actions of ordinary people as they respond to the hand life deals them. Of all the letters and memos that this library and foundation will house, one of the most meaningful to me is a letter written more than 50 years ago by a young woman to a friend of hers in Chicago. She wrote, "I have suffered such a great tragedy. My husband was killed in an automobile accident on May 15th. I had come home to stay with Mother and Daddy for a while, and he was on his way to get me when the accident happened. It seemed almost unbearable at the time, but you see, I'm 6 months pregnant, and the thought of our baby keeps me going and really gives me the whole world before me." That letter was written by my mother on her birthday in 1946, 3 weeks after my father died, 3 months before I was born. I hope I didn't let her down. The letter was presented to me during my last month as president by Marietta Presley, who was close to my mother and who kept her friend's letter in her attic for over 50 years and discovered it just a few years ago after my mother died. I've been very lucky in my life. I'm lucky that my mother didn't give in to bitterness or grief or despair, and taught me never to give up and always to be grateful. As president, I tried never to forget where I came from and never to forget about all the hardworking people in America and throughout the world who struggle against the odds to give their children the chance to live their dreams. I was pulling for those people every last day I showed up at the Oval Office, and I think a lot of them knew it. I am so grateful to all the members of my family who are here, my stepfather Dick Kelly and the whole vast crew of all these early rows. I'm grateful to all of you who helped me along life's way. I've had a good run. And what I know now is that every child needs to be taught that life's blessings are gifts to be shared. That our differences make life much, much more interesting. But our common humanity is much, much more important. That, after all, is the great promise of American democracy. It has enabled us to survive for over 2 centuries. And now that we live in a world without walls, we'll have to keep that promise for all our children. Through this next great adventure that you have given me, I'll try to do my part. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, you might, please be seated. You might be interested in knowing that of those 7,000 people that showed up at the Institute of Politics at Harvard to hear you the other day, that a young man from Little Rock, Arkansas named Clark Tucker has just been elected president of the Institute of Politics. And that's a big deal. After the benediction, those who are participating in the actual groundbreaking should move to the section at my right. When this is completed, I hope everyone here will join the Osbornes and I for lunch. I also hope you will enjoy the preview exhibit, the Clinton Library Collection. It's in the Cox Building in the River Market. It opens to the public tomorrow and it runs through March the 2nd. Admission is free, and we hope you will enjoy it. The President noted 26 years ago in Fayetteville, a good friend married Bill and Hillary Clinton. That good friend later joined them at the White House for their 25th wedding anniversary. And today he joins us to participate in this historic ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, for the benediction, the senior minister of Little Rock's Pulaski Heights United Methodist Church and my very good friend, Reverend Vic Nixon.
I was sharing with the mayor that it's only at politically inspired gatherings such as this that clergy get applauded before they pray. Will you receive this blessing? My friends, go from this place in the knowledge that indeed we are all blessed by this magnificent country, state, and city that we love are a part of our lives. Go from this place today in the knowledge that as soil is turned, it represents the transition to a new future. Go in the knowledge that leadership with vision enables us to transform every present into a future that we can only imagine. Go with commitment and perseverance, with courage and determination to transform life as we find it into life desired. Go, my friends, in the knowledge that we are blessed indeed by God Almighty. Live together in peace and love for one another and work for the reconciliation of people here and around the world. And may the peace and blessings of God go with us all. Amen.